This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so just a few minutes on Horizon and who we are and why we're here. We've been supporting public and private organizations across the sectors at the bottom of the screen of all sizes for the last 20 years since 2000. So with space inventory, performance, with building operations, with lease, with asset management, with mobility, and more recently in the areas of room reservations, energy management, sustainability assessments, compliance, and risk management. So likely of key interest to the folks on the phone is that we do support over 28 government department clients, including yourselves, including the National Research Council, Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Public Works, Public Safety Canada, House of Commons, Shared Services, and a number of others with ARCHIBUS. It's on its way to becoming a de facto standard. I think it's a few signatures away, but we are hopeful that it'll be a TBS sanctioned because so many people are using it and getting value from the tool. Helping real property folks get a handle on what they have, where it is, the conditions, vacancies, to track and manage work or life cycle data on assets or the utilization of space and people, basically modernizing their work and workplaces. So we've been providing also integrations with HR systems and financial like SAP and Active Directory and for that optimizations that kind of work for each individual department or organization. So the key is that our expertise is in the deployment and the technology and the business. So our goal is to have our clients become as self-sufficient as possible. We try to build internal centers of excellence inside the client organization, and we really are an end-to-end professional service firm. Don't want to sound too salesy, but we definitely have a specialization in real property for the federal space. We're committed to helping our clients really succeed and excel with the solution, with the software. So we not only offer the software, but we also have the people to support the advice and business analytics as well. ARCHIBUS really is a large program. It's a suite of applications that address a whole bunch of business functionalities. We're going to be spending our time in the blue box at the top, so the building operations today, and I'm going to leave lots of time for that, so I'm going to talk fairly quickly. On either side are the systems that ARCHIBUS will generally talk to, pull information from, or push information to. It is an engine, like a powerful engine, if you think of it as a relational database that houses all the information that you might want to have associated to the portfolio or and not limited to people, assets, projects, and processes. And building operations, as I said, in the blue box is one of the areas that will provide, it's a vital component to understanding your portfolio. The connector framework is important, and that's when I said the push to and pull from. Your CAD drawings, your BIM Revit drawings, your models, GIS data, spreadsheets, and Excel. It talks to and can pull through templates and can pull information across to share the data, to create a one sort of system of truth or business intelligence, if you want. From my conversations with Michelle and Bob both, and Rianne, I don't have to tell you about the value of the organizations of standardization and accurate real-time data reporting on space and operations. Kind of you're living and breathing that every day. And this tool can go a long way to help with that initiative and your desire to get better reporting, compliance, standardization, and control. These are a few of the folks that you are in good company with. We work with all the folks on the lower left of the screen. In gray is some of the clients that I mentioned earlier that are colleagues of the Canadian federal government. So we've been working with those organizations. But globally, there's 8 million folks across in over 16,000 organizations. So just to let you know, a lot of people have been doing what you want to do. The system is fully built out. It's called COTS, which is a commercial off the shelf. And right now, there's some really exciting things happening in the Canadian government and in a lot of our clients. They're moving with the executive interest and the desire to sort of Fitbit and provide metrics in real time. We are seeing people integrating with IoT, like the PSPC, using sensors to track real time utilization and even temperature in buildings. We've got co-working buildings with the Geomatics group doing reservations for flexible hot desking, and as well as a huge project underway with D&D to standardize all D&D and classifications under standardized process and using ARCHIBUS. Our CMP also has similar plans. So there's exciting things happening right now in the wind. Just want you to know that you're part of it. Definitely the move to do building ops to augment the space data it's a well-trodden path in the private sector. With Canadian government, they sadly are have lagged a little bit behind in some of the adoption of these things, but with the last few things coming down from with the executive oversight that's being requested now and reporting DFRP and a whole bunch of other stuff, it's more than ever important to be able to provide that information and be as agile as possible. So I'm happy to share any of those case studies with you, and you can also look at ARCHIBUS on YouTube, ARCHIBUS TV to get more people talking, to see people talking about the solution and what it's done for them. But basically, it offers an exceptional user experience. So now more than ever in version 24.1, there's ways to access, read, and consume data depending on role, your region, or permissions. So from a just contracting craftsperson to an employee client of yours, to supervisors and portfolio managers and directors, providing the region at the right level of detail to suit whatever focus, user, and need. So adoption is always about people. So the robust help, the easy navigation, the quick start home pages, and performance metrics is key. It is the technology designed for today's needs. So not to overwhelm you at all, but these on screen, these are various ways that ARCHIBUS helps organizations to track and monitor and better plan. So making data more verifiable, more transparent, and a centralized kind of way to can share information. And that's all in support of a greener, more modern, more productive work environments and ways to ensure your client satisfaction and divest surplus inventory, make move decisions, the fix, replace kind of decisions, and ultimately kind of support a better bottom line. This is the Building Ops Console. You're going to be seeing and hearing about this for sure today. And you're going to be hearing about data templates, about consoles, about drill downs. Basically, ARCHIBUS allows you to get levels of detail. And you're going to see how it's round-tripped and used to do a number of things, either to reduce manual input, to de-silo spreadsheets, however well-intentioned, get sort of hoarded onto various areas. So it's really important to be able to make and create a versatile single source of truth, and this tool has been built out to do that. So building operations is a goal to improve performance, to simplify forecasting, to prioritize work requests, and to optimize labor and materials, and to simplify the programs, both the on-demand work and the preventative maintenance programs, to comply with regulations, to provide history, and to sort of schedule PM schedules and parts so that they're on time and really be able to respond to and prioritize issues to increase customer satisfaction. So optimizing resources and be able to budget with greater confidence. So being able to manage what you track essentially. We are helping clients stay agile and healthy and be able to respond easily to status and requests and emergencies, and demonstrate mandatory compliances that have come down and been self-generated. So the oversight and the performance by being able to track assets, work, people, and space, really makes workplaces more connected, informed, and the tool lets you grow as needed. So, a couple modules now, later on move into other areas, and I know Tiffany will be going over some of those kind of cool add-on areas. But I will sort of climb off my soapbox now and my sales speak, and I'll turn you over to what you really wanted to see, which was a live tour of some systems. So with that, I'm going to give you Murray Hunt, Calgary Board of Education. I'm going to unmute him first of all. There you go. And then give you the controls. Okay. You should have them now.
Nope, this one. There. So can everyone see ARCHIBUS?
Perfect. I can.
All right.
Hopefully everybody else can.
Well, everybody else can't say, so that's too bad for them. So Calgary Board of Education has been using ARCHIBUS probably now for pretty close to 13 years. We started with space planning and management to get all of our composite drawings integrated, and then the next big implementation was building operations. So we've got, as you can see on our blue navigator on the left-hand side of the screen, we've got a bunch of different functions that we're doing. I'm going to start talking about building operations, and as an administrator, have a bazillion navigator items. Our users do not. We started with the implementation of building ops, and what happened was our facility operators, and there's a facility operator in each of our 250 schools, would handwrite work requests and fax them into the office. So we were well into the 18th century technology and decided that there was a lot of process improvement that we could do. So what we did was we actually deployed building operations out to all of the facility operators. So there's a little bit of change management, but fortunately, ARCHIBUS is a pretty straightforward tool. So we did up our screen to pull in a lot of things. What we do with ARCHIBUS is we're all single sign-on, so it knows who I am based on the fact that I'm on the network and I'm on our internal network, and so there I am. And anyone who's a facility operator can go in and create a work request. And we've got some certain workflows where these screens will then move forward to our work request console. One of the things I want to say too is that we're on version 21. So we're in the process of going through an upgrade to go to version 24. And so there are a lot of consoles and really good tools in version 24 that didn't exist when we started actually with version 20. So we created some of our own consoles with Horizon's help, but the functionality and the way the consoles work would work well with 24. So any facility operator can come in and they can make a work request, and so they can go and they can pick their school number, and ARCHIBUS uses lookups, so it's a relational database, so I can go and I can put in Highfield or partially Highfield being the building that I'm at, pull it back, it will tell me what that is. I can now go pick floors because we've got all of our data cataloged. And then the really nice integrated piece about having our space in there and then hooking building ops to it is I can go and I can not have Flash enabled, which I think I did last time through the run through. So we'll quickly go through that. And so I can go and show a drawing. So when we move to version 24, we'll be using HTML drawings, which are much better than the Flash ones. So, and then I can go graphically pick the room that I'm in the school. So if I wanted to say that it was in a storage room or some other information, as a facility operator, I can do it. ARCHIBUS can control your workflow through the use of required fields. So if I try and submit this, it's going to tell me that I need a longer description and that the repair type is not correct, and it'll go and highlight that, because for our workflow purposes, for categorizing the work, for moving it forward to our trades, we need to know what we're actually doing. So I can then go pick a problem type from the list. All of ARCHIBUS lists can be sorted, so I can sort, I can search. If I wanted to see something that was plumbing, I can put, I think I have plumbing in there. Oh, mechanical. I can use mechanical. I could search for anything that had to do with toilet, and it would say unclog or replace toilets, and away I go. So it's very intuitive interface for the users to use that. The other thing that we can do is with ARCHIBUS, I can either submit that work request or I can actually attach a picture. So if I wanted to take a picture of where the light was or whatever, I can attach it to that, and then the trade would be able to go and see that. Since we're live in my live system, I'm not actually going to submit this, but I can go, once I've done that as a requester, I can go and look at where are my work requests. So we're wide open, so any facility operator can go and look at any school. So if I wanted to go and see Highfield work requests, I can put high in here. Let's try Highfield. And I can go and see all of the work requests and who submitted them and what were they, and I can actually kind of go and view and see what am I supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be replacing ceiling tiles, and I can see who the tradesperson is. So what this does is this creates lots of efficiencies for our requesters out in the schools, because they can go and actually, rather than trying to track down someone or call someone, it's very self-serve. They can go in and see what's the status of the work requests that they've submitted, are they issued, have they been completed, any tradesperson notes. So if the tradesperson had notes that they came back to the requester that said, yeah, it's all good, or I found this and we're moving it over to a project or something like that, I can go and see all of that. We can also go in and we can drill down with buildings. So if I wanted to go and look at AE Cross on the main floor, I can see which rooms have work requests in them. So again, we're integrating the space data with our work request information. So I can go in and look at the whole floor. It'll tell me how old they are based on the colors. I can go and pick a specific room, and it will drill down and show me that work request, and then I can open that up to view the work request details. So there's lots of good information that we're doing. The other thing that we do is we have a hazardous material inventory, which we did through condition assessment. And so with condition assessment, we can actually go in, and I, as a facility operator, because I'm working in the building, as well as our trades, can go in and they can go and look, and they can see all of the asbestos, lead, mercury, PCBs, confined spaces, and so forth, all of the samples that we've had done for our schools, so they can say, if I go and I pick, let's go to the drawing. If I go and pick a specific room, I can actually go and drill down and see what all of the hazardous materials are that are in that room. So we can see that there's chrysotile, and that's old floor tiles. So providing this integration here gives our facility operators direct access to this information. So when our central folks do updates and they remediate any of the asbestos containing materials, for example, that will automatically update the data in the database, and the facility operator is always looking at a single source of truth. So they're always able to see what the most current data is, as opposed to some old binder that nobody's really quite sure the last time that got updated. So once we've got our work requests created, they route to our work request console that we did. And so we have our help desk folks will look at all of the work requests that come in. So we built some quick restrictions, so I can go and look at emergencies. So these are all of the emergency work requests that have come in today. And you can see that they're either all issued or they're all on hold. And we have some metrics around that. So we've got some performance metrics that say an emergency work request must be addressed within 24-hour period, which means that we issued it to a tradesperson. So I can go and open up that work request, and it will show me a bunch of work request detail that we have. So I know who's requested it because we capture that when it's being created through that screen that we saw previously, because we've got that integrated login. I know which team it's assigned to. This happens to be central maintenance painting. So depending on how our different work teams are set up and different types of work, it can auto route through service level agreements, so that if it's a particular type of repair type for a school, it will go right to, and it's for carpenters, it will go right to that specific carpenter. This is not a carpentry one. We know that it's a graffiti because it's an emergency. It could be nasty stuff, so CBE considers that emergencies. It's not like 911, call the fire department or the police. These are things that have happened to the school environment that would interfere with educational outcomes, so we do that. We can see the drawing, so I can see which room that graffiti doesn't like the external drawing for this one. I could show the drawing. I can also see, let's pick one that's not the external floor. That'll help a little better. So let's grab HVAC. So this is on the roof. If I show the drawing, it'll tell me what roof segment it is on the roof. We don't have our sites cataloged, so we just have a floor called external, which is the outside of the building. So we've got that. I can look at that. I can also look at the hazardous material contained on that. There's probably nothing in the roof, but that's okay. We'll have a quick look at it. And we might have a quick look at it. Just thinking. So we can do that. I can also go through and see down at the bottom which tradespeople have been assigned. So if it had been handed off from one tradesperson to another tradesperson, I could see what hours they'd worked. I would be able to see which costs had put in. And we also have what we call sub-work requests. So the way ARCHIBUS does stuff, and this is just CBE terminology, you create a work order, which is the bucket that holds a bunch of work requests that are associated to the same job. So all of those work requests where there's more than one work request associated with it, we will see down in here more work requests. So I can see that the carpenter came in and they did their work, the plumber came in and they did their work, the painters have come in and done their work, and so on and so forth. The other thing that we do with our work requests is we had a special printout that we did back when we were paper as part of transition. And so I'm not sure how well that's going to look for you guys, but
it looks good.
We have the main work request information at the top, and we have down at the bottom here our safe work practices. So each of the tradespeople has to perform a pre-job work hazard assessment. So are there fall hazards? Are they working in a restricted space? Is there electrical permits that have to be pulled? Have we cleaned it all up? Is all of the stuff they would normally do with a pre-job hazard assessment prior to ARCHIBUS, sign this piece of paper, and it would come in, and we would manually go through all of those and collate them to say that everybody performed or everyone was supposed to perform their pre-job hazard assessment. They may not have, and so we would want to verify that. So we move that electronically into ARCHIBUS so that the trades can actually go in on their laptops and log in as a tradesperson into the console, see their actual work requests that they need to action, and then for each work request, because I'm going to close this off, whoops, not that one, try it again. And grab emergencies, and let's do a leak. So for each of the work requests, the tradesperson can come in and they can actually perform their pre-job hazard assessment electronically on their laptops. So they can say that they've reviewed the hazardous information, click off that they had a permit and so on and so forth. I'm not going to save this. So they're now doing this electronically, so we don't have to have people going through and collating this type of information, because we can draw it directly out of ARCHIBUS with reporting tools. So with the work hazards are complete, it will actually turn green to show us visually that we've got that visual cue that the work hazard had been completed by Chris Rowan when he'd gone in and done that. So we can also see an audit log. So this emergencies just get assigned directly most of the time. Let's go find something that's actually been completed. So we can see something here that's fire and security. So under here, we can see that we've had the tradespersons worked on it for 12 hours. There were no other invoice costs. There was no other sub-work request. It's green, they've completed their work hazard assessment, and we can see that down here. And for the audit log, we can see that it was the cost code for our budget tracking, which we're going to talk about in a minute, was entered, that we've had our status change from issued to Ruben. Ruben trade work completed it. Brad Corman, who is supervisor, reviewed it, put the cost code on, and field work completed it. So it's now ready to be archived in 30 days, which ARCHIBUS will do automatically for us. So we've got a really nice workflow that's now managed electronically that we can go and report on. So we've got a number of reports that we do. So we have our work request processed report, which we do by fiscal year. So this is our metric that we were talking about, where emergencies are supposed to be issued to a tradesperson within a 24-hour period. So this is the summary report that tells us about that. So we can see in September that we missed one. We missed one in October, and we also missed one in May. And if I want to, I could go grind in and have a look at those. I also mentioned electrical permits. So we have another piece in the work hazards that said, did I do my electrical permit? So we can now track that as one of our compliance issues. So we want to have our electrical permits opened and closed for all of the electrical work that we're doing within the school. I can also look at another metric that we have, which is our hazard assessment completion, which will come up, which says, so how many times did our tradespeople go in and do their work hazard assessments and complete them? So you can see that we're well over our requirement of 80% of the time, and we're into the 90% of the time, because we have that easy ability for the trades to go in, put their hours in, and say that they've completed it. The other good thing about this too is we can export all of this data to Excel whenever we want to. So these sort of roll-up type reporting save us a ton of time and effort for staff. So instead of the staff collating things and spreadsheet monkeying, what they're able to do is they're able to perform analysis. So instead of collating all this kind of stuff, they can get into these reports and start actually looking at, so what do we need to do and where are our areas of weakness, and do that kind of analysis. One of the reports that we did have is we have a budget report. And that's not in this one. It's in this. Nope. So there's a budget report, which we have, which is our plant operations cost summary. So this report takes, I'm going to go back so we've got some full data for you guys to look at. So what this report does is it takes for all of the different areas, it says what's my annual budget, what's my actual cost for each month, and it will go through and it will tell me what my remaining balance is against my budget. If I go to my budget summary and pick a budget year, it'll get into even more detail. So let's not pick me and go show. So this is the report where for each of these cost codes, which we code all of the work requests to, so the supervisors do that, we would have an annual budget for ceiling repairs for Area 1, and we would have the actual amounts, which are all rolled up directly out of ARCHIBUS, and then down the way I can see how much I've actually spent and what my budget remaining is. This spreadsheet, which I clicked the button on, and you saw how quickly, or this report, you saw how quickly that came up. This used to take one of our senior finance folks 1 week a month to regenerate a spreadsheet that had all of this information. So she would run reports and paste stuff into the spreadsheet and run some other reports and paste stuff into the spreadsheet, tweak things around because it wasn't easy to update stuff. And by moving into ARCHIBUS, what we've done is we replaced that repetitive work with her being able to go in and actually do analysis and work around. So what's happening with the budgets, do some budget projections and do some other work. And now the supervisors, instead of having to wait till the end of the month to find out what their last month's performance was, they now have it current, up to date each time that they open this report. So those are some of the values that we found coming out of the maintenance piece. The other thing that's kind of good is we've got preventive maintenance procedures, and I'm not going to get into those in any great detail, but what we do is we hook those to our equipment inventory. So again, we have an equipment console. So our equipment console looks very similar to many of the ARCHIBUS things that we've done. And if I go in and I look at a particular piece of equipment, because we can hook work requests to the equipment barcodes, I can say for this auto hoist that I have a preventive maintenance procedure that's been set up for an annual hoist inspection. I can see that there's a work request that's been issued for that, that's open. And I can actually see documents that have been attached from that work request. So I can go and scan and show in what the actual inspection report would be, was for, not that I can read that, was for that particular hoist. So these are some of the different pieces that we find are super valuable to get ARCHIBUS being used. So now, because ARCHIBUS is a centrally managed database, our shop teachers, so the automotive shop teacher, would have a login to ARCHIBUS, and he would be able to go in for this particular school. So for Bonus, the Bonus shop teacher would be able to go in, he would be able to see all of his equipment, he would know when it had been inspected, he would know what needed to be done. He would actually, we have some admin regulations where they have to, the teachers have to go in and update the inventory date. So this is the last time that that particular hoist was inventory. So again, we're linking all of the different data. So we're taking our space data, we're taking our building ops stuff, using the space data to inform where the building operations stuff is going. It informs what we have for our asbestos containing materials, which is for work hazards that our trades look at, that our facility operators need to see. We've got transparencies where the principals can see what work has been done at the school, all because they have access to ARCHIBUS.
Perfect.
And so I think that's
great.
Pretty much the building ops stuff.
That's great. Thank you very much, Murray. I appreciate you opening your system to us. I definitely, I know that the people on the call are interested in kind of a potential regional rollout. So just wanted to outline that it can be segmented by if it's on a campus, it can be by building. If it's by, a regional, it can be by region, and the responsibilities and those kinds of things all roll up. And you see what you're permitted to see once it's all been set up. We also train administrators like Murray to do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of system maintenance afterwards, who's doing what roles and things like that. So anyways, just thank you very much. We're going to turn to Eleanor now, and Eleanor comes to us from London. She's going to show us her system and talk to a little bit about her experience with ARCHIBUS.
So as I introduced myself earlier, I'm from St. Joseph's Healthcare in London. We have 4 sites that we manage, which is approximately around 3.2 million square feet. We're fairly specialized in what we do. We have a veterans care program, a long-term care facility, and rehab, and 2 mental health care facilities as well. So we come under different regulations, which has an impact on how we process our work. We're currently on version 21, and we're going to be upgrading very shortly to 24, and we're pretty excited about that. We started with space management a long time ago. St. Joseph's has had this program for about 20 years, back in the old DOS version. And on top of the space, they've layered building operations, project management, and real property and lease. We do have some other modules, but we're not leveraging them to the same extent. We have a staff of 4,500, and we do not have the single sign-on like Murray does. We have a generic sign-on to ARCHIBUS so that any employee within the facility can submit a work request for repair work. When I started with the organization 4 years ago, back in 2015, I went in and I just did a small snapshot as to where we were. And this is what I found. We had over 1,200 work requests that were outstanding. It was a combination of both demand and PM work requests, and most of them were in the issued status. With a staff of approximately 30 tradespeople, we had quite the backlog. So we sat down and defined a roadmap of where we wanted to go in the next 4 years and how we were going to get there. We made a decision that we were going to focus entirely on ARCHIBUS. We weren't going to use anything else to help us get there. And one of our primary goals was to eliminate the backlog, or reduce the backlog of outstanding work requests. We also wanted to do a shift in focus. We had been processing repair and emergency work requests with a higher priority than PMs. We felt that if we could get our arms wrapped around the outstanding PMs, that would drop our requests for repair and demand work requests. So we put a measure in place where we wanted to complete our PMs within the 30-day mark. Part of our success story was also going to entail that we provide communication back to the users when work is complete. So because we're a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week facility, oftentimes we'll get duplicate work requests entered into the system because there isn't a transition of knowledge between the person, say, on the morning shift to the person on the night shift when it comes to entering information for facilities. So we took it upon ourselves that we needed our tradespeople to communicate back to the requester that the work has been done. Again, like Murray, we had already identified rooms through the space module that had asbestos in them. And when our tradespeople receive a work request, it is highlighted if there is asbestos in that area. We also wanted to address material ordering for PMs and take a look at some of the metrics to help us decide what our labor mix needs to be. Above all, it needed to be intuitive and transparent because we have over 4,000 people using the system. So I'm just going to switch over and show you our system. Can you see that? Can you see our system here?
I can see it great. I'm sure there's, yeah, thanks.
Okay, so this is what our dispatcher or admin person sees when they sign into the system. We have 2 people, and they are in an admin role, but they also dispatch the calls for us. So we have 2 people who handle and triage all our calls that come into the system, as well as the PMs. And we wanted to give them a very high level of what was going on with the system every time they signed in. So we implemented something that is called home pages. And the information that you see here, this is our live system, gives them a good feeling as to what's going on for the day. When we were originally assigning work to tradespeople, what we would do is if an electrical call came in, it went to electrician number 1. The second call that came in went to electrician number 2, and then the next one would be back to number 1. So there was equality as far as the number of work requests that were getting assigned to each individual. What we weren't looking at was the backlog that they had on their tablets. And I'll just interject here and say that the other thing that we did was we went mobile. We went from a paper system to mobile devices. So we were starting to deal in real time rather than having that lag of paperwork flowing through the system. So when our dispatcher signs in the morning, if you look at the metrics right here, we can see who has how many calls in their backlog on their tablet. So if we were assigning new work, we would probably assign the new work to Ian and Terry and Wayne as opposed to the people at the bottom of the list which have more calls. What that is doing for us is it's eliminating a buildup of outstanding work requests. PMs, huge priority for us, just a huge priority to get those done. So we have an alert here, which will tell us if there are any PMs floating around in the system that have not been assigned to a tradesperson. And if this is above 0, then our dispatchers hop on that right away and get those assigned to the people in the field. We have such a varied umbrella as to what we deal with, and we do have a veterans care program. We're a non-smoking facility except for the veterans. So they have their own little pub on site here in our hospital, and within that pub, they can smoke. Because of that, we come under a different set of regulations for those air handling units that service that area. And the Ministry of Health can come in at any time, and they do, and request reports so that they can ensure we're properly maintaining that area. This alert will tell our dispatcher if there is an outstanding PM for that particular room, piece of equipment that is coming up for expiry within the 30 days. And again, they can hop on that and follow it up. When we pull a report for the Ministry of Health, they came in last week, by the way, and so it was kind of interesting. I knew we were going to do this presentation, so it was interesting to watch this unfold. But our admin went in and pulled a report for it, and I'll just show you what that looks like. Work request report. The views are fairly standard, which is a benefit for us because we have so many people using the system. It needs to be fairly intuitive. This is a list of all our work requests in the system. And anytime you see a white box at the top of a column, that is a search field. I know that my equipment code for this piece of equipment, all right, I'm frozen. Okay, 61324. So here is all the work associated with that piece of equipment. If I want to narrow down the date range and say for this year, I can do that and hit show and it filters out that information. And then we can export it to an Excel spreadsheet or a Word doc spreadsheet. So it is that quick and we can respond that efficiently to the ministry when they do come in. One of the other reports that we use for our dispatchers is for our long-term care facility. A couple of years ago with the Wettlaufer case and elder abuse was in the news quite extensively. We hired a third-party contractor to come in and just review our management of that facility. And one of the things that they said was we needed to be completely transparent with the work that was going on in those buildings. So we created a report, and all management within that facility has access to this report, and you can see it's the same format. So you can get an appreciation that we're starting to have continuity here. Once you've seen it once, you've seen almost everything and can use it efficiently. And this is a list of all the work for the facility. And I can narrow it down to maybe this year and hit show. And it shows everything, whether it's in an issued status, completed status, rejected status. So we're opening up our database wide open so that people can see what's going on and ensure that we're addressing the needs of the residents of that building. So I'll flip back here. PMs, we have a metric down here that tells us we have 28 PMs currently in the system that has been open more than 30 days. So our dispatchers would take a look, and this gives them an understanding as to what site. If we need a further breakdown, we can see that 24 of those PMs belong to the trade code of millwright, and we can start to have those discussions. Are we falling behind? What is happening? How are we going to get back on track with the PMs? Our dispatchers, of which there are two, sit at different sites. So they back each other up for sick days, vacation, that type of thing, and they're very familiar with the system. But what happens when they're both off at the same time, which has occurred, and somebody else is stepping in that they're not quite familiar with how our system works on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis? When they sign in, they'll see the same thing, but when they're assigning calls, they may not have an understanding or an orientation as to where certain rooms are, because we don't want people running from building to building to do their work. We want to try and group it together so we get the greatest efficiency out of the tradespeople. If they're unsure as to where an area is, there are some views up here which will help them determine that. If we go into the find a room, and I'm just going to key in a room code here so you can see how quick it is. 125, it's got the smart search, and I hit show. And there we are. We're that little yellow room here that I'm searching for, and I can expand it. So now I can orientate myself, see what building it's in, and when I dispatch my calls, I know who's doing service to that area. Sometimes we don't always know a room code, but sometimes we know a person's name. And there is another view, and these views are right out of the box, by the way. We can do a locate employee view. I will put in my name here. Oops. There I am, and I hit show, and it comes up. And again, it shows me exactly where I'm located. So that's a very valuable feature for our staff when they have to step in and they're doing a role or a job which is not typically assigned to them on a daily basis. So we use the home pages quite extensively. And we have roles and home pages set up for our coordinators and for our director, and you can also use color coding. So our director has both building operations and the planning, and we've colored it. Green is for planning and orange is for the building operations. So where are we today? Where have we come in the 5 years? This is a snapshot from last week, and instead of having 1,200 work requests outstanding, at that time we had about 450. The big changes in the issued and process, we went down to 411, which is a decline of 4 years ago of 800 work requests. So that's a huge success story for us. I checked it today and it's down even lower. That'll go up and down or outstanding. How did we do it? We leveraged the space. We used the mobile solutions, which allowed us to deal in real time, gave us accountability. The home pages is crucial for us. It's a wonderful tool. We switched our focus from doing demand requests as our first priority to preventive maintenance. Unless it's a life safety issue, we always prioritize preventive maintenance. We brought in special views for our special situations. One thing that I didn't talk about was the material ordering. I'm just going to flip back, if you don't mind, and do that. And go back to our home page here. We did find that with the PMs, there was a delay when a tradesperson received a PM on their tablet, that the materials to do that PM weren't always available to them. So what we have done is we've started to populate ARCHIBUS with the belts and the filters that are required to do a PM. And you'll notice the views are all set up the same. These are our air handling units, and I can see that we need certain belts, sizes, and certain filters. And the way we've set this up is there are times when on an air handling unit, you just change the pre-filters, and there are other situations where you change the pre-filters and the final filters. And ARCHIBUS is able to distinguish that for us. So we run a report a month in advance. We are almost in June. Once we are in June, we'll run a report for July. Our dispatcher will pull that information out, place an order for all belts and materials based on the report, and when the July PM is generated, the materials will be sitting in the shop waiting for that individual to come and get them. So that saves a lot of delay in getting the PMs done as well. We've done the close the loop. So our real success story is the fact that in 2015, where we had that huge backlog of outstanding work requests, we triaged just over 17,000 work requests. In 2018, that had gone up by 4,000. And this year, if we look at the first quarter of the year and we make an assumption that we'll work at the same pace and get the same number of work requests, we again will increase the number of work requests that we're processing by another 2,000. So we're doing more with the same amount of staff. Our backlog has gone down, and we've been gradually taking on more equipment within the facility that we're performing PMs on. So for us, it's been a great success story over the last 4 years. So that's our story.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Eleanor. I really, really appreciate you coming today to showcase your system. Definitely the ARCHIBUS is deployed in a lot of different types of organizations, including government departments, healthcare, higher ed, and across the globe. So you are in good company. I did want to just do a quick little shout out that both of these individuals that we're presenting today are Nexus Award winners. That's the International ARCHIBUS Conference that was down in New Orleans this year. So definitely want to thank them for their input today, and longtime Horizant clients too. So thank you. I'm going to give the controls over to Tiffany, who's going to take the last little bit of time before the Q&A, which will shorten a little bit given the timing, but she's going to show you some fancy stuff with the 24.1 and maybe just touch on a couple of other areas that we haven't maybe seen in the presentations to date. Let me just turn things over to you, and I believe we should be able to hear you too, Tiffany.
Yes, you should. Okay, so you should see my screen, and my intention is to show some functionality that comes out with version 24. In terms of the requesting a problem for the end users, there's now a more a really good web form that works well on the mobile device, so the users can type in the URL on their phone, for example. On the left there, that's my phone. Oops, sorry, moved out of the way. Or you can also implement the barcode scanning functionality, which would then know the location of the equipment or even a location of a room or space to report a problem against. So that way you don't have to necessarily remember a URL and get to that link. So what I'm going to do is grab my camera, scan that barcode, and then that gives me the option to open it in my web browser. And now that we're done showing that barcode, I'll expand this. And you can see here, it scanned and knew where the equipment was. It also has information about some of the recent requests by others regarding the issue there, and I can create a brand new request as well. So let's go ahead and do that and type in our situation. The printer smells like it's burning. And as you notice, the location prompts there, it already picked it up from the barcode scan, so I don't need to fill that out. And all I have to do is go next and potentially upload photos. So we'll go ahead and take a photo. Oops, photo, not the library. We'll go ahead and take a photo of the situation. And send that.
That's Godzilla, if anybody's wondering.
All right, so that has generated the ticket, and as well as confirmation has been sent through email. And that ticket itself will also follow any of the service level agreements identified as part of the ARCHIBUS settings. All right, so now let's go into the ARCHIBUS side. If someone's using this on the web instead and not on their mobile browser or not, you can certainly utilize the home pages and set it up so that there's very limited access for a requester to do things such as reporting a problem. So in the concept of it is that it's already picked up that person, their phone number and location, but I can always change it by, as you notice, that drawing map that Murray kind of showed case already. So I'll use the map function instead this time. So this shows me the location, especially if I'm generating a ticket outside the building. I can first off show what kind of assets that are outside that building, especially if I'm dealing with like a light fixture problem or creating a brand new ticket problem right here in some areas that you might not necessarily track in ARCHIBUS as well, such as a potential gate problem or access to a shed. Oops, shed entrance. And then we pick from our problem list, which could be any kind of the following that you track, security problems or such. But if you notice, we do have that workflow identified to us that it's going to be routed to a work team. However, if I picked leak, for example, that might have a different service level agreement that it's seen as an emergency and someone needs to be taking care of it right away. So let's go ahead and do the leak problem and say the shed roof is leaking. Again, you have the option to add a document as well, or just go ahead and submit the ticket. And if there's any similar work requests that were already submitted against the area or the same date, you can go ahead and review it as well to make sure if it's the same thing before creating a duplicate. So I can choose to keep submitting or go back and revise it if it's not the same problem. But now let's go into what the dispatcher and what a supervisor would see. In this case, this is a role-based console, so it's meant to only showcase the tickets that you would have access to. In this case, if I'm in as a supervisor, I can see that there's 300 and so odd tickets that are designated as part of my care. I can see the ones in red or the ones that are already escalated. No one has really taken care of it within the timeline due. If a craftsperson uses the same view, they can actually use it as well. What it happens is that they only see the tickets they're in charge of. So at that point, they'd only see the tickets that are issued to them, which would be a lot less for them to see. Now, I can run several searches here to find tickets, as you can see here with the filter-driven approach, or I can even do it by searching through locations. For example, pulling up a certain map, and then finding locations and highlighting, well, what's active right now. And then you could also put that into part of your search requirement as well, like so. Let's clear that for one more second and then show another way to do that. So the other alternative is if you have a very large regional span, you might want to locate the specific locations. And then any of these items that are here in green, that represents tickets that are not inside the building. So you can then filter by a specific location as well. So actually, let's go ahead and just filter this one, and we'll punch in a floor as well. So I see I have some tickets that are involved with this particular location, they all have these click buttons for me to run the updates. I can go ahead and pick up any particular ticket and get more information. So as part of the ARCHIBUS 24, you're also able to grab information about if there's any related requests. So that would be a list there of any, and a link to other related tickets. Oh, let me close this one. I was actually going for this one here. All right, and there'll also be reference materials. So if you're dealing with, oh, I know what I did wrong. I wanted to go for the roof. All right, so now we can go into any of these locations, get more information about reference documents, which could be a link to, say, your hazardous materials or a checklist or a diagram. And then it can pull up information. If there's nothing really on this roof, you might still care to know, well, what's below the roof and such for hazardous items and chemicals there, or asbestos-containing items. Next, let's clear that for 1 second and come back to the tickets that are in their own individual requests. So items that just came in here, some of them can have approval processes, as you might notice. Some could be automatically approved and then go into additional functions there. So each of these particular groupings allow us to deal with quick buttons to escalate these tickets. And that is the one I made earlier, where I can certainly go ahead and do a few things. For example, any of these related tickets, anything from office equipment, security, even project-related tickets or move tickets or assessment items where you felt the issue can be resolved through an on-demand ticket. You can certainly push them in here too. But what happens is once this is here, you can start scheduling them. So that gives us that drag and drop interface of bringing staff into putting it on their timesheet, basically. So what I've got here is that we have the ability to also connect to the Exchange calendar. So you can also have a view of absentees, for example, or things or people are sick and on leave, or as well as if they're on a particular site for a certain timeline, then I have a good view of where people are and who's really available to do the work, because we get their standard hours, and it also takes into accommodation for any variances to their timelines, and then how much allocated they are. So I'll go ahead and find an employee here, Stephen, and give him that the printer problem. And then we can, again, if we felt it's going to take 2 hours or such, we can certainly expand that. And we can drill down into Stephen's timeline and understand what's his schedule looking like within the day and how many absentees he might also have, while also getting an idea of how much missed work he's had on his backlog and what's the estimated time it should take him to complete them. Also, as you notice, this is a very filter-driven approach to the product. So we are able to run various filters, such as maybe even searching by descriptions for things such as graffiti that might not be that common on your ticketing system, or even locating things such as, let's search for equipment standard and find everything related to the air handling units, grab them all as part of your search. And then you've got all the completed and even the closed tickets to as a list, which you can also export to Excel and other formats. All right, let's quickly showcase some preventive maintenance pieces. We do have a PM planner with version 24, which we can also, I'm just going to pull up a recent search that I've already done to find some particular equipment standards that have a procedure associated to it. And from a glance, you can already see anything that's been completed on time or had the check mark in that case, or they've been late, and then the red being it's missed. So here's one where we've missed all of those. And when you expand it, those are all the procedures related to either that equipment or that location that has not been done. And then we can also see from a week-to-week perspective here, anything that's coming up for that particular piece of work. And of course, you can keep expanding to future times to get additional details. Now, coming back to one of these items here, we can certainly pull up the profile sheet about the amount of work that's related to the procedure. So as part of the procedures, you would want to identify that you need an electrician to do this work. You might need certain parts or certain tools. So as a result, that dependency of the times you need for people, if you have enough staff, that's great. If you don't, and you're going to do a few things as part of planning, either you change the interval expectations of whether or not you can handle that preventive maintenance procedure, so you can deal with different floating or fixed frequencies for these times, and adjust accordingly for the next time when that ticket is being generated. Or if you definitely are not getting extra staff and you just need to change the schedule for just a certain week to balance everything out, what you have here is you can turn on a few perspectives. One is a cost perspective or a labor perspective to help you deal with that division-driven support factor. In this 1 week, I have a demand of 34 hours, for example, of certain staff members, but I can also turn on a whole labor performance sheet. So that grabs the different trades I have. It takes in consideration all the variance of their hours from a week-to-week perspective, while comparing to how much on-demand work they're typically getting on their plate. And as many of us might have that practice of, a lot of the preventive maintenance work ends up becoming some sort of secondary priority. So when we plan how much PM time, we end up getting in remaining available hours upon our teams and our trade groups. So in this case, I have a very healthy week the next week, and then I can always shift these items to another week to balance it out. Last but not least, you do have access to an ad hoc console for you to generate a series of different reports. For example, if you get to that conversation where you need to expand your team, you can certainly go by a month as your grouping or compare to the different problem types or work teams. So all the amount of work in terms of counts or by labor hours, and you're ad hocly generating a summary of the data so you know your particular team, that's the one that probably needs the more staff if you're trying to expand and move people from other areas. And you certainly can display that information in a variety of different ways, even the list form or a table summary. But what's important here is you can save this report so that I can use it again. And oops, we've already done this once, so I'm just going to say 2 here. And then that gives me a list of my recent searches that I can always pull up again. So with that said, that is actually the main crux of what version 24 has to offer for preventive maintenance and kind of that on-demand work of it. And what we're going to now show you is some of that value add conversations. So that ARCHIBUS itself, it is an application-based system, so you can grow deeper with the applications and turn certain areas on. In this case, when you're dealing with the asset life cycles, that deals with everything from registering assets to the management of them and to the end of life as well. So that allows me to search up any kind of asset structure that I have here in one view. And I can pull up any of the profiles and grab an information about their current activities. For example, in this case, this would be a concept of all the audit surveys, all the deficiency assessments, and all the activities recorded against it. And you can see that we've broken it down by their statuses, and I have the ability to drill down and get the individual information about them. As well as exporting as well to Excel and other formats. We can also grab from our maintenance history a perspective of all the information about these assets. So I can grab anything from my search, such as the years of life expectancy from 5 to 0 years, and then find all those assets that are getting close to their end of life. And pull up that profile. I get information about how much life is left, as well as details about the total historical cost and average cost for this maintaining this asset, and of course that full maintenance history for them as well. Last but not least, you can also, I guess, present this information in a variety of different ways, whether you need to present it in the pie chart format that the biggest impact of work for your assets is preventive maintenance, for example, and it might be a certain particular type of asset as well. Followed by that, we do have the ability to present the parent-child relationship of the systems. So that gives me the idea of you can generate as many systems as you have, and then as you can see here, there's multiple levels within this hierarchy that you can drag and drop into defining what that system's comprised of, and then even being able to grab at any point of that hierarchy and identify locations of where that equipment is, or go up to this level even. And there'll be information such as the team that's responsible for it, to the custodian taking care of it, or the spaces that it impacts if something goes wrong and the system goes down. Then what are the other spaces that have impact to it? You can also associate ARCHIBUS with Revit, which has a lot of that good building information modeling about that as the equipment system itself. So that brings in all that 3D modeling and information over. Or if you want to as well, you can also use the 3D viewer to see details about that particular asset. Actually, let's switch to another one that has a picture. And then it's a representation of what to expect inside that space and what assets are there. How are we at time?
I was just gonna stop you there. I think this is all great. I do want to leave a little bit of time for people to be able to ask a few questions and kind of do a little bit of a wrap up. So I think that was great. That definitely shows the possibilities and talks a little bit more to the asset, like the round tripping of information and informing work tickets and preventative maintenance on the value and condition of assets. It's basically what we're selling is business intelligence for your organization, for your individual department. It's getting a lot of buy-in at every level of government, and there's strong functional capabilities that that ARCHIBUS can offer you. You can start in one area and really grow into others. We didn't get a chance today to talk about, tracking your energy and carbon footprint, or leasing, or vacancies and divesting of options, evaluating even employees. And we did talk a little bit about the hazardous materials and that kind of thing, but there's also emergency preparedness to think about as well. So ARCHIBUS can kind of inform a lot of different areas. It's already built out in lots of functionality, and it's flexible enough to kind of work with you guys with your specific needs. So a lot of the fields you saw in several different systems today. Some of them, they use their own terminology because it's their system. So, on setup, that's all organized and arranged to be the most effective for the reporting. And you saw how the transparency and the fact that people are kind of almost forced to enter things a certain way promotes the ability to actually have real-time reporting, and that's critical. So I guess we're wrapping up on 2:30, so I will give anyone a chance to. I do want to thank Bob for sending out the invites for Rianne and Michelle, and I hope that you found some benefit in the presentations today. I want to thank you for your participation and for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And you can also check out ARCHIBUS TV on YouTube for other success stories, or contact me. I'm Iana, so iCiati at horizontSolutions.com. It's on the bottom of the screen. So I will make the presentation available at some point. I think we'll probably cut out some of the reverb and make it available to people to share. Really appreciate it. Thanks very much. So thanks, Murray. Thanks, Elmer. Thanks, Tiffany.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.